Has anybody gone to see Elemental yet? I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it real quick. Elemental. Now it only mentions the four elements, not the fifth, which would be ether. So we're just talking about the four basic elements here. We had the earth, or like the earth was like the arboretum, like the trees and shit, right? It was kind of weird, but it's still earth. Of course, we had air, and the two most dynamically opposed um characteristics or signs would be the fire and the water. There's no there the there's not no two elements that are more diametrically opposed, right? Fire and water. Okay. The fire people are the Jews. Elemental did not suck. It did not suck. I liked it. It was deeper than what people give it credit for. The elementals, the fire people were the Jews. The fire people were the Jews. Now, some would say the blacks, there were blacks. Many of me thought they were blacks. I was like, no, I could see where you got that from because of the discrimination. I said no, because they had their own language, their own culture, um, their own customs, right? So the fire people were the Jews. Now I still couldn't figure out who the water people were. Now, if we're gonna call the fire folk Jews, then obviously the next logical thing would be the water people would be the Germans. Um, I'm still working on that part of it, but either way, when Ember, the daughter of her father, because she never calls her father father, she calls him like Ashva, right? Because you know, in some of these cultures, they have a title for their father. She always called him like Ashva or Ashra. She never called him father or dad, none of that. There's always Ashva, Ashra, right? So they had to flee their him and his wife fled their homeland for whatever reason, right? The storms came and they couldn't grow the crops, and he decided to leave his people. He did a ritual to his father, asking for his father's blessing. His father did not return the blessing. Shit was deep, man. This movie did not suck. This shit was deep. I understand what box office is. I get it. I get it. But this movie did not suck. Did not suck. Lots of gems in this. All right. So they go to Element City, and every culture or every element has its own little city, but for the most part, the fire people are outcasts. They have their own city away from everybody. The other elements pretty much all survive, and or they all live and commute together in Element City. So during his adventures, the father he was profiled. He was um There was race. It was called. I guess it was elementicism, right? There was like no fire people allowed, and your language, this, and very very reminiscent of how they people how treated the Jews, right? Okay, they had the daughter. The daughter, you know how most cultures are like. This is what you're gonna do when you grow up. You're gonna run this shop. So she's been groomed to take over the father's shop. So she's like, yeah, 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 yeah. Take over the father's shop. Okay, so she's an adult now. And then what happens was, so from Element City, there's this canal port, and when the ships come by, it splashes water over the mini dam, and it's supposed to keep the water away from Firetown, but the water goes into Firetown, and then there's a pipes burst and stuff, and so then Wade, the water guy, he's an inspector for the city. He gets sucked into her pipes in her father's store. He's like, oh, ooh, water, permits. These are citations. I have to write you citations because you didn't get the proper permits. She's like, no, you can't do this. My father, he built this. He built this by hand. Every brick and mortar. And he's like, oh, he built this by himself, by hand. And she's like, yeah. Oh, more city permits, more permits and tickets for for violations for building violations. So what ends up happening was his boss allows Ember and Wade to find the source of the leak that's coming to Firetown. If they can stop the leak and have her crew come and check it out and verify it, then they'll forgive the tickets for her father's store, and they won't shut his store down. So what ends up then they go to the source of the leak, the canal with the canal. There's a dam and there's a hole in it where the ships come with the water, right? So she's a fire element, and they try to stop the leak the first time with sandbags, and then that didn't work. And then she ends up heating the sand. She has this ability to she can heat the sand and turn it into glass. She's very good at it. So what she does is she seals the leak with glass or with sand, turns the sand into glass, into tempered glass. Her boss, Wade's boss, shows up. It's like, oh my God, you made it with tempered glass. It leak held. Okay, tickets forgiven. Your father can have his shop. So then there's this whole back and forth of, does the child honor the father's legacy, or does the child say, you know what, I want to do my own thing, and because I don't want to run the shop, I want to go live my life and see what I can do. Wade takes Ember to meet his family. Now, Wade's father died when he was young. Wade, they're water people. They're criers. They're very emotional. So he cries at the drop of a dime. The mother cries at the drop of a dime. There's his brother. He's an uncle. There's this whole huge family dynamic of water people, right? Very loving, very supportive, right? She's like, oh, okay. They're not judgmental except the uncle. They're like, oh, okay, you're fire. Okay, that's awesome. Wade is talk so much about you. Oh, come, welcome. So the uncle is like, well, gee, you speak very well and very nice for a fire person. And she's like, they're like, I'll just ignore him because he's old school. He's an old school water guy. And all the old school water and fire people know water and fire don't mix. The mother was like, water and fire don't mix. Don't mix. So then the glass breaks at dinner. Ember she reforms the glass and turns it into a vase, a tempered glass vase. The mother loves her. She's like, hey, I know somebody downtown that could possibly get you an intern at the biggest glass company in Element City. You have a talent. You need to explore that. And she's like, oh, thank you. You know, because she never thought about, up until that moment, she was always ready to take over the father's shop. Now that somebody else introduced an idea to her, saying, hey, you have a talent, share that with the world. Now she's conflicted. And there's this back and forth love thing between Ember and Wade. So then the glass at the port breaks. And then there's this massive flood. There's so many things I'm leaving out. But the most important part is at the end, the flood goes to Firetown. Everything gets decimated. Ember tries to save the blue flame of their family. That's their culture. The blue flame is everything to them. Like if the flame snuffs out, that's their family's lineage. Like that it's a bad thing if it can't ever snuff out. And then there's these back and forth tropes between fire and water. She's like, well, what if you extinguish me, or what if I vaporize you, right? Because water and fire, whatever the case may be. So at the end, Wade shows up to help try to stop the flood. They get trapped in a chimney. And then she seals everything off, and then it's so hot inside the chimney. Wade's like, oh, it's so hot in here. He's starting to evaporate. He's like, it's too hot in here. She's trying to get him out. He's like, no. I, this is a great moment, and I'm just happy to have lived this life and experienced these things with you, and all blah, 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 blah. Like, he's like, yo, this is the best time I've ever had in my life. I spend it with you. I'm okay if I die. So after the flood, the waters recede. The mom and the papa, they find Ember, and they're like, he died. He tried to save me in the flame, and she gives the flame back to her father. And then with the evaporation, there's a drip of water, and they get Wade to cry because Wade's a crier. He's like, say something that'll make him cry, and he starts crying. The water drips down into the pot, and he reforms again, right? So then at the very end, and she tells her father, like, I don't want to run the shop. I want to do my own thing. And he's like, okay, cool. He gives all these backstories about how it was his whole life's mission to pass the shop to her, whatever the case may be. So what ended up happening is they had a bunch of friends that came to run the shop. He retires, him and the wife retire, right? So she's going on a boat. She goes on a boat with Wade. They're going to go to Element City for her internship. And then plus Wade, they come from money. He comes from money, so he can do whatever he wants to do. They come from money. He comes from money. And so before she gets on a boat, she does the ritual, the bow to her father, asking for his blessing. And he returns the favor, returns the blessing, and does the bow back to her. And she gets on the boat. It's like, God damn, that was good. Elemental was good. It was good. It was good. It was not stupid. Stop. 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 It was good. It was good. If Mini Me likes it, I know it's good. So I liked it. I hate that it didn't do better. And they confirmed it confirms two genders. Okay? There's no silliness. There's no, you knew who everybody was. Everybody was either male or female. There was no in between. All the hanky panky that the tree people were doing, they were plucking apples off each other's vines. Oh, we're just pruning our vines. Like that's some sexual thing they do is they pluck each other's apples off each other's branches and stuff. So throughout this movie, there's two genders affirmed. Okay, all right.